Well, folks, you won't believe what happened in the Sugar Bowl, and no. It wasn't just Georgia's upset loss to Notre Dame. This one's got a little more spice to it. Picture this. Georgia's redshirt sophomore Parker Jones, a walk-on defensive back, wasn't even dressed to play. He wasn't suiting up for the big game against Notre Dame. He was on the sidelines, cheering for his teammates and living his best life. Right? Wrong. As the first half of the game rolled on, Georgia's offense finally hit a huge play when gunner Stockton launched a 66-yard bomb to Arian Smith. Fans were going wild, but as Smith dashed down the sideline, chaos ensued near the Bulldogs bench. Enter Parker Jones, who accidentally collided with a referee while trying to stay out of the way. And, yup, you guessed it, penalty flag flying in the air. What a moment. Now, Jones was just caught up in the excitement of the play. But unfortunately for him, the rulebook doesn't allow players, or walk-ons in this case, to make contact with officials. So there he was, trying to slink away and hide from the cameras while Georgia fans and social media alike couldn't resist making a joke about it. Honestly, you had to feel for the guy. You can't blame him for getting caught up in the hype of the moment. But that penalty? That very well could have cost Georgia a chance to add points to the board. And, of course, the college football world didn't let him live it down. The memes were out in full force, and social media exploded with fans roasting Jones for his unintended sideline incident. So, what's the takeaway here? If you're a walk-on on the sidelines, maybe, just maybe, keep a little extra distance from the refs. But for Parker Jones, at least he'll have one heck of a story to tell, even if it's one where he collided with destiny. Alright, folks, that's all for today's sideline drama. Don't forget to hit that like button. Share this video with your football-loving friends. And subscribe for more hilarious and unpredictable college football moments. Until next time, stay safe, and maybe avoid those referees. Cam Skattebo's standout performance in the 2024 College Football Playoff quarterfinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl has caught the attention of many NFL scouts. Despite Arizona State's 39-31 double overtime loss to Texas, Skattebo's remarkable effort, rushing for 143 yards, scoring 2 touchdowns, catching 8 passes for 99 yards, and even throwing a 42-yard touchdown pass, has boosted his stock ahead of the 2025 NFL Draft. Throughout the 2024 season, Skattebo proved to be a dynamic and versatile player, totaling 1.711 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns, and 605 receiving yards with 3 receiving touchdowns. This impressive season, combined with his standout Peach Bowl performance, has brought him into the conversation as one of the top running back prospects in the draft. Currently, most draft analysts project Skattebo as the 8th best running back available, which would likely place him in the late 3rd round of the 2025 NFL Draft. While he was not a high-profile draft prospect earlier in the season, his rise to prominence, particularly after his Peach Bowl showing, has solidified his place in the mid-round mix, standing at 5 feet 11 inches and weighing 215 pounds. Skattebo's size is slightly unconventional for an NFL feature back. While he may not have the typical elite speed or size that many scouts look for, he compensates with strength, the ability to break tackles, and a low center of gravity that makes him tough to bring down. His physical style of running could make him a valuable asset in certain NFL schemes. The NFL Draft will take place from April 24 to 26, 2025, and while Skattebo's exact placement is still uncertain, his rise in the draft projections shows how much of an impact one standout game can have on a player's future. After years of dominating college football, the Sec's reign has come to a screeching halt. Georgia's stunning 23-10 loss to Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl has officially buried the Sec's boogeyman status. For the first time in what feels like forever, the SEC is left scrambling for answers, while college football fans everywhere are breathing a collective sigh of relief. So, what happened? How did the mighty fall so far? Well, it seems the inevitable unraveling of Georgia has finally come to fruition. The Dogs haven't won a college football playoff game since their back-to-back national titles in 2021 and 2022. And if that wasn't enough, Alabama, LSU, And other SEC heavyweights have also been knocked down a peg. In fact, Alabama hasn't won a playoff game since 2021, and LSU hasn't tasted victory in the CFP since 2019. Oh, and don't even get me started on Tennessee. After making their first playoff appearance, they promptly lost by 25 points to Ohio State. So, is the SEC really finished? Or is this just a temporary bump in the road? Here's the cold hard truth. The SEC is facing some serious questions going into 2025. Alabama, for instance, just wrapped up its worst season since Nick Saban's first year in 2007, finishing with 4 losses. To make matters worse, quarterback Jalen Milroe has declared for the NFL, leaving a massive void at the most critical position on the field. And Georgia? Well, their offensive coordinator situation is in shambles. Kirby Smart's decision to hire his old college roommate, Mike Bobo, has backfired spectacularly. With blue-chip quarterbacks like Carson Beck and Gunnar Stockton, Georgia has relied on raw talent to cover up coaching mistakes. But when it mattered most, they were outcoached and outplayed. And let's not forget about LSU. Coach Brian Kelly may have had success at Notre Dame, but his time in Baton Rouge has been a roller coaster. Losing every season opener and failing to make a playoff appearance is a tough pill to swallow, especially after wasting a once-in-a-lifetime performance from quarterback Jaden Daniels. Now, as if all this wasn't enough to make SEC fans sweat, the looming question remains: how long will this down period last? Sure, Texas has been making waves, and the Longhorns are recruiting well enough to make a legitimate title run in 2025. But let's not forget that neither Peyton nor Eli Manning ever won a national title. Can Arch Manning finally bring Texas back to the promised land? Time will tell. But let's pause for a second and take in the irony. Georgia, who once laughed at conferences like the Big Ten, is now looking up at teams like Ohio State and Notre Dame. After all the trash talk about the SEC being invincible, Georgia was completely outsmarted by Marcus Freeman's Notre Dame team. In a pivotal moment, the Irish ran a clever play, forcing Georgia to jump offside and extend their drive. And what was Kirby Smart's response? He claimed that SEC officials had told him such a move was illegal. The irony? Priceless. The big, bad SEC, complaining about the fairness of the game. The boogeyman is officially dead, folks. So, what now? For the SEC, it's a reckoning. For everyone else? Well, it's time to celebrate the end of an era. The only question left is, how long will it take for the SEC to crawl back to the top? Will they bounce back? Or is this the start of a new era in college football? Alright, folks, that's the scoop for today. If you're enjoying this wild ride, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on all things college football. The sex dominance may be over, but the drama is just getting started. Stay tuned. Oregon's highly anticipated trip to the Rose Bowl was supposed to be a story of redemption, power, and potential. The Ducks, with an explosive offense and a season that had them looking like the best team in the country, were ready to prove themselves on the national stage. After bulldozing through the Big Ten in their first season in the conference, the Ducks were feeling confident, especially after Ohio State's shaky performance against Michigan earlier in the season. But by the time the final whistle blew, it was clear that Oregon's dream season had come to a crushing halt. Ohio State wasted no time in showing they were the better team. And by halftime, Oregon was staring at a 34-0 deficit. It didn't make sense. The Ducks had just come off a Big Ten championship game where they had put up 45 points against a solid Penn State defense. And they had already defeated Ohio State earlier in the season. Yet, here they were, unable to get anything going. The big plays by Ohio State were too much to handle. The first 4 touchdowns of the game were all 40-yard-plus scores, leaving Oregon's defense in shambles. Quarterback Will Howard and receiver Jeremiah Smith delivered highlight reel after highlight reel, while Oregon struggled to move the ball on offense and failed to stop Ohio State's explosive attack. Oregon's coach, Dan Lanning, didn't mince words after the game. "Sometimes it's not your day," he said, acknowledging that his team was simply outplayed. "We just ran into a great team and didn't play our best." The Buckeyes were firing on all cylinders, and Oregon's defense, ranked among the nation's best, couldn't keep up, despite the Ducks' best efforts to adjust. The game was already out of reach by the second quarter. Lanning took full responsibility for the loss, admitting that the coaching staff didn't have a good enough plan and failed to make the right adjustments quickly enough. They did a good job taking shots early on, senior linebacker Jeffrey Bossa said, reflecting on the dominant performance by Ohio State. But the loss wasn't just about Oregon's failure. There were questions raised about the new 12-team college football playoff format. Oregon, the number 1 seed, had to face a tough opponent in Ohio State right away, while teams with first-round byes seemed to have an easier road. Lanning, however, wasn't making excuses. "We had an opportunity. We didn't take advantage of the opportunity," he said. "No complaints for us. In the end, it was clear. Ohio State took full advantage of their chance, while Oregon simply didn't show up on the big stage when it mattered most." Now, the Ducks will have to regroup, learn from this loss, and prepare for the next challenge, knowing that sometimes, it's just not your day.
Kirby Smart complains about Notre Dame's 11-man substitution during critical Sugar Bowl play. Hey, folks, let's talk about the Sugar Bowl and a certain moment that turned Georgia's hopes of victory upside down. Now, we all know Georgia took a 23-10 loss to Notre Dame in a tough battle. But there's one moment that really made all the difference. Well, technically, it was the last little nail in the coffin for the Bulldogs. With just under 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Georgia was still holding on. But everything changed in a blink of an eye. Notre Dame was facing a critical fourth and 1, with a 23-10 lead. And guess what the Fighting Irish decided to do? They pulled their entire punt team off the field and rushed their offense into the game like a bunch of sprinting leprechauns. But here's where it gets interesting. The rules dictate that Georgia was supposed to have the chance to respond with their own substitutions. So naturally, they did. The problem was, the whole situation got a little messy. The officials held the ball until Georgia's defense was in position, which, sure, sounds reasonable. But this led to 2 of Georgia's defenders jumping offsides. The pass that followed, thrown by Riley Leonard, fell incomplete. But guess what? A 5-yard penalty. But hold on, it gets juicier. Did Notre Dame even need to snap the ball? Who knows? But that 5-yard penalty gave them the first down. And they didn't waste any time burning off that clock. By the time they handed the ball back to Georgia, only 2 minutes were left. And with that, Georgia was left with no room to breathe. What did Kirby Smart think? Now, Kirby Smart, the Georgia head coach, wasn't exactly thrilled about how things went down. After the game, he went off in his post-game press conference. And boy, did he have a lot to say about it. Here's the gist of his complaints. "It's really unfortunate because I've been told by our head of officials in the SEC that you can't do that. You can't run 11 on, 11 off," Smart said. He went on to explain how they've practiced this scenario before, and that they'd been told in 2017 that it was illegal to do a substitution like that. "We got our defense out there. We were fine. I would have gone for it if I were them. So, I don't think they were planning on going for it. They were going to hard count us. And we prepared for that. We do it every week. And we jumped offsides. But we were also told you couldn't do that by our league." The big question: was it actually illegal? Now, here's where the plot thickens. Everyone's scratching their heads over this because, when we take a deep dive into the NCAA rulebook, it's not exactly clear where Smart's complaint comes from. In fact, many experts and fans are asking, what's the deal with that 11-man substitution rule? According to the rulebook, there doesn't seem to be any mention of a ban on 11-man substitutions in the context of this play. In fact, the substitution rules are pretty clear. Teams can make as many legal substitutions as they want, but they can only do so during certain times, like between periods, after scoring, or between downs, in order to replace players. When substitutions happen, the officials make sure the ball can't be snapped until the other team has the chance to substitute as well. So, what does that mean? Well, when Notre Dame brought in their offense, the long snapper didn't touch the ball, so it wasn't in play yet. With 20 seconds left on the play clock, there was plenty of time for Georgia to send in their defense. The official made sure the ball wasn't snapped prematurely, keeping things fair. In fact, The play didn't even start until every player was in position. And the official was there to make sure that happened. But despite all that, Georgia's defenders jumped offsides. Was this all a misunderstanding? Smart admitted that the confusion didn't prevent his defense from getting into position. But the issue wasn't just the substitution. The real problem here was the critical penalty that put Notre Dame in the driver's seat and allowed them to eat up precious time on the clock. Could the officials have handled things differently? Maybe. But in the end, it seems like Kirby Smart may need to have a heart-to-heart with those SEC officials to figure out if there was a misunderstanding about what's allowed during substitutions. While Smart's complaint about the 11-man substitution doesn't seem to hold up against the actual rules. One thing's for sure. That moment in the game was a huge turning point for the Bulldogs. What happened after? Even though Notre Dame didn't score on the ensuing drive, the damage was done. They burned off more than 5 minutes of precious clock. And Georgia only got one more chance to respond with their own drive. It was a tough situation. And time was running out. So, let's all remember this play and how it affected the game. A single moment, full of confusion and penalties, played a pivotal role in deciding the outcome of the Sugar Bowl. Wrapping it up. And that's a wrap on this intense moment from the Sugar Bowl. I want to know what you think. Did the officials handle the substitution situation the right way? Was Kirby Smart just venting after a tough loss? Or is there more to this than meets the eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up. And share it with your fellow college football fans. Stay tuned for more breakdowns and discussions on all things football. And I'll catch you in the next one. Until next time, folks, keep the football spirit alive. And remember, always keep your eye on those penalties.